The building we are now in is called Crafts 3. It's a 4-story structure. The lower floor is residential, and the middle 2 floors house a bakery and a cafe. The upper floor, where we are now, is a visitor center as well as a gallery, and this space is where we provide information about the project, as well as we sell ceramic bells and bronze bells. If you follow me, we'll now just walk through the project. A르코산티 is located directly in the center of a transition zone, an environmental transition zone, a biotic transition zone. And physical geographers and geomorphologists divide the Southwest into 3 physiographic provinces. To our south, we have the very hot lower elevation deserts, and to our north up here, we have the uplifted plateau country. The plateau is very unique in that it's comprised of sedimentary deposits interspersed with aeolian sand dune wind deposits, and actually represents about 6 million years of uneroded geology on top of the materials that go back to 2 billion years. So we are right in this transition zone between these 2 very different provinces. This is called the central grasslands, the central highlands, the central mountains. And as a transition zone, really has little bits and pieces of flora and fauna that are representative of these other very distinct environments. About 11 million years, also geomorphologists refer to this as the basin and range physiographic province at a much larger scale. There's a series of northwest, southeast trending mountain ranges that come through here. And you see one over here on the horizon. In this mountain system, geologists estimate that 2.2 billion years ago, half the age of the Earth ago, this was on the scale of the Himalayas. Likewise, this mountain range on this horizon, 2 billion years old, Precambrian rock. And over the last 2 billion years, the work of running water has eroded these mountain systems down to a core of very tortured, faulted, compressed schist, and deposited this material, alluvial material, in a basin. So we have a basin and range. About 11 million years ago, we had another major event of volcanism that occurred right here, and sheet volcanoes deposited flows of lava came right through here. And what we're looking at here, and what we're standing on, are sheets of basalt that are at least 100 to 300 meters deep. And then it's, again, the work of running water has eroded this basalt rock, creating, over the last 11 million years, and creating this very, again, very tough, rough geology. Seesaw-like mountains, very low mountains. And the difference between a north-facing slope, as we see over here, and a south-facing slope here is quite extreme. There's much more solar energy as impacts a south-facing slope. Snow and moisture stay longer on a north-facing slope. The soils develop at different rates, and hence the plant communities that are hosted on these different environments, north, south, east, west, is quite extreme. So this is really a very diverse and very rich biotic community comprised of grasses and woody species and many, many edible plants. The water table is not, I don't envision it as an underground lake at all. It's really the water that's being carried in very porous water-bearing rocks like this. And this blue basalt is quite porous and can carry a great deal of water. And if you can get 2 or 3 small rivulets coming together, is what happened there, you can have quite a bit of water. The water really comes from, not locally, but to our north up here on the higher country. We have the Prescott National Forest. We have quite a bit of snow melt up there in the winter, that in the spring, which replenishes the water table. The summer monsoonal storms are much larger up there, so we're really not in an endangered area at all in terms of water. At that point, right now, we have enough water for 7,000 people, just with our 5 wells that we have drilled. And that's enough for all of the domestic use, plus we have enough for a 7 to 10 acre or a 10 to 12 acre greenhouse complex, and enough again for open field agriculture of approximately 60 acres. So although we're in an arid region, we really do have no water concerns. Also, the ethic here is that even though the national average is quite high, we're going to be using only a fraction of that and then recycling gray water back into the agricultural system as well. Paolo's first choice as the site to build on which to build Arecosanti was actually that mesa over here, and it's perfectly flat. It's an ideal site, perfectly flat. It's about 150, 160 feet above the floodplain. It's on non-agricultural land. It's very steep on all four sides and provides beautiful views in all directions. So the first thing we did was we needed to get a road in here. So we hired a D8 Caterpillar bulldozer tractor, and we began pioneering the road in. We got to this point and ran out of money. So Paolo said, it's going to cost us at least twice as much or more to get to that mesa. And we eventually have to deal with the bridge. We'd have to build a bridge across the river. So let's just see. So he took the plans and said, it'll fit here. So that was the decision. The other thing the positive aspect of that is that it was closer to the main highway, meaning that implying that individuals, tourists, people that wanted to visit the project could get here quite easily. And the idea of Arecosanti was never one to be some sort of a dropout, really remote community for the sake of being kind of self-sufficient, self-reliant, but to be a true demonstration that was accessible to anyone who wanted to visit. Okay, this is a rendering of the first version of Arecosanti. And again, what Paolo was talking about is clustering the housing. For him, for Paolo, and in the concept of arcology, the pancake, the suburban sprawl, the Los Angeles, the Phoenix, Arizona, is almost the cancer of urban planning. It's not designed for individuals and people and social interaction as much as it is for the automobile. It's only accessible by the automobile. So what Saleria is saying in this prototype is remove the automobile entirely from the design process. And when you do this, the city will automatically cluster. So the city really is about exchange of information and access of individuals between other individuals and the amenities that the city should provide. So this represents a footprint of approximately 10 acres. The scale here is Paolo designs in metric, so the scale is 5 meters. Or 16'6", each of these increments. So we're only talking about an 18, 20-story structure at the maximum. The main elements of this, it's a rectangular enclosed arcology or prototype arcology, and the main structural elements that are the apses. These are very large apses. These are double apses, 100-foot radius. There is actually 2 to the south. This is a south-facing elevation. 2 more on the north side of the structure. A hemisphere facing the east, and a double apse back to back to the west. The apse is a really good example of passive solar architecture. In this case, the apse, when facing directly south, collects solar energy during the winter season. When say the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, the sun rises out here to the southeast, arcs fairly low on the horizon, and sets here to the southwest. And on those winter days, there's sun penetration right back into the back rooms of the apse. And the entire day, the apse is flooded with solar energy. It's soaking up that energy and re-radiating it out. So during the cold season, it's a very inviting, warm, radiating outdoor workspace. The converse would be the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, in which the sun rises out here to the northeast, arcs high in the sky, and sets to the northwest. And under those conditions, the apse actually shades the interior portion during the majority of the day. So it's not a really big deal, but it is passive solar architecture. The apse is really working with the annual regimen of the sun, collecting energy in the winter and shading itself during the hot season. This apse was cast on silt. Silt is alluvial material that we actually take from the Agua Fria River that runs through our property. And in particle size, it's a wonderful material to carve. It can hold detail, a lot of detail. And in particle size, it's between clay and sand. Clay is very small particles, and hence, so when you add water, it gets very sticky. Sand, very large particles, has no adhesion at all. So clay, the particles, or the silt, is particle size midway between, enough clay to bind it when you add a little moisture. The geology now down at Cosanti, when Paolo came back from Italy, he began experimenting with various ways of doing ceramics processes that he learned while he was building the factory in Vietri sul Mare. The technique he utilizes is basically just going out into the desert or in a bed like this, and you carve you actually create a form. Now this is dry, but if it were dampened, you would end up with a form much like this. The building is really a natural extension of this whole process. Instead of casting clay slip, however, into a concave mold, he just inverted the process and created a mound, create a mound of earth or of silt, up the scale to building size, and change the material from clay to concrete. So you cast a thin shell of concrete onto the earth form, and then wait 14 days, 10 days, and come in, and when the concrete has reached its strength, and come in and excavate the earth material. Take an hour or two, and then spray this all off with water, and you have your structure. Now we'll go through the site here, and I'll show you several examples of how silt was used for poured and place structures as well as precast structures like the vault. Here we are in the vaults, and the vaults are on the exact center line of Arcosanti. If you went to the other side of the mesa, you would see the vaults are in the middle of the south elevation. We have the north vault and the south vault. These are really excellent examples of precasting on silt, and silt casting, but precast elements. So each vault is comprised of 12 individual panels. 3 panels were cast together. So we had a earth form, a silt form, right out here, and you shape very carefully. You shape the earth, get it quite smooth. Then with kitchen utensils, knives, carve into the silt each of the patterns. Take concrete pigments, the reds, the yellows, the greens, browns, ochre, and mix that with water, the dry pigments, and paint that directly onto the earth. Put the reinforcing steel in place, then cast the concrete. These are fairly delicate. They're only 2.5 to 3 inches thick, and after the appropriate time for the concrete to cure, 10 days, 14 days, with a crane, pull off the first 3 panels. Set those aside, then reshape the form and do that over 4 times to get the 12 panels. We then built a wooden shoring system, scaffolding system, and carefully set these in place with the crane, and then welded them permanently into place from the outside. You'll notice the haunch pieces on each of the vaults, and those were to house a steel I-beam on either side and a 2-way overhead crane. So the main function again was a precasting plant where the crane could pick up each of the concrete elements and take them off to the side and drive them to the job sites. In the summer, it's a nice shaded workspace during the heat of the day, and in the winter when the sun is lower, this is all flooded with light and a very warm work area. over time, many different functions have occurred here besides the casting slab. Up at this level was our first library. At this level was our first drafting studio. This was our metal shop, and over here was our first wood shop. We also, it's been used for parties and celebrations and meals and dances and performances. We have a complete wooden stage platform for dance, which is suitable for ballet even, that covers the entire floor area. Nureyev, the Russian, famous Russian dancer, performed here actually. We've had a complete circus utilize the whole space. And even this Saturday, we will be having, hosting a sit-down Italian meal for 300 to 500 people for our annual Italian night. After that, after dinner, everyone then moves to the amphitheater area, and we'll have about an hour and a half concert performance. Well, here we are on top of the vaults, which just is, as you can see, is just a great view, 360 degrees in all directions. So it's a great place to watch the sunrise, the sunset, shooting stars, meteorite showers during the summer, and approaching storms. And the storms can be quite dramatic in this desert environment as they progress very rapidly across the landscape. It's also a great place to see fire, and fire is quite common here during the hot season, and fire is indispensable to the health of the grasslands environment. It's a positive thing, and as fire sweeps across these grasslands, it happens very quickly, and it burns out all of the old, dried, non-productive senesced grasses. So it'll burn all of that old stuff out, puts fertilizer back into ash and fertilizer back into the soil. Where you may have had 10 or 12 species of grasses before the fire. After the fire, that coming spring, you'll have maybe 30, 25, 30, 40 different species. So it revitalizes and revigorates the entire ecology of this environment. And this also feeds back into the animal population. So the deer and the antelope and the javelina and the wildlife all take advantage of these fresh new grasses that are emerging. We had a major fire here that was a negative event many years ago. We often had an autumn or a concert or a festival, usually in October, where we would draw maybe 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people. And these would go on for 1 or 2 days. There was theater, all kinds of participatory events and music events. And this amphitheater, this natural amphitheater out here, could seat about 5,000 people. On this particular day, we expected about 5,000 people, and by mid-morning, the traffic was backed up almost 25 miles to the south. And all of the parking was taken here, and overflow parking then went down into the agricultural acreage down here, and completely occupied the first 20 acres of farmland. That had been disced. There was no burnable materials. Overflow from that parking lot then went into the second field where we had standing grass about this high. So we still don't know what happened, but somehow a fire occurred. And during a concert, here's 5,000 people watching the stage, and suddenly a boom, just a major explosion, a burning tire flying across the sky. And it lands right in front of 5,000 person audience. Several thousand people just got up and totally startled as one explosion after another just continued to occur. Just bam, 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 black plumes of smoke as people rushed over to see what was happening. But over 140 cars were totally consumed and exploded. So it was really economically not a good event, but it was sure an exciting environmental sculpture, I would say. We are now in the amphitheater portion of the East Crescent complex, and this is where we hold our major lectures and concert events. And during the concert season, during usually the heat of the summer, the moat we see down here is filled with water. And then there's a low energy pump that pumps the water up to the high point and then cascades the water very gently down underneath the stairway. And this presents sort of a psychological cooling as well as some physical cooling with the evaporation of water. Yet to be complete is the water screen. Instead of having a conventional curtain, there will be a cascade of water separating the audience from the stage area when sets are being changed, a piano is being moved, a different group is coming out to perform. So you'll be able to see through this shimmer of water, this kind of movement in the background. In the periphery surrounding the amphitheater is a series of 11 three-story residential units, primarily residential. However, the lower floors have a mixed use. We have a community room at this end. The archives are housed in this area. There's a classroom where we have lectures for our incoming students. The construction workshop and model shop is located over here, as well as a library, public bathrooms, and just a general recreation room, also all on the lowest floor. The population of Arscosanti has never really been fixed. Over the years, we've had over 10,000 people have participated, but at any one time, there may only be 100 people or even 200 people, but 10,000 people have participated and given their energy and subsidized the project with their efforts and their labor. When Arscosanti is complete, we hope a population of maybe 7,000 or 5,000, 7,000 people living here permanently. That might translate into 30,000 or 40,000 co-users, people who have participated in the project, tend to come through the project, stay for a period of time, and then leave and proceed with their lives, whether it goes back, they're going back to school or traveling or learning a particular skill. They feel the need to participate again, they can flow back into the project. So it's we're not trying to build a mini city to where people spend the rest of their lives and raise their children and eat a particular diet that's dictated by the community, but it would be a very, hopefully a very lively mix of people that are continually flowing into the real world and coming back to Arscosanti. We're behind the East Crescent complex looking toward the amphitheater canopy. This canopy is temporary, by the way, and the final canopy will be elevated and suspended off a 2-meter thick, 2-meter high steel space frame, which spans from the finger panels to the 3 vertical columns. That space frame will also suspend theatrical props, lighting, a sound system. And the 3rd floor of the Crescent is residential, and we have a real housing crisis here at Arscosanti, so this will be duplicated on this east side. And it's a major priority in the construction schedule. The slot we're looking through will eventually house a 2 to 3 story cinema amphitheater complex. And this will be a space, an indoor space where conferences and movies can be shown during inclement weather and of course after dark. To become anywhere near self-sufficient for 7,000 people, first you can't do it on 60 acres of land. You really need this piece of technology, the greenhouse. And normally greenhouses are built on a flat surface. There is no such thing as a microclimate in that situation. You might have a shaded corner that has a little lower temperature than a sunlit corner, but for agricultural purposes, the temperature of the soils, the thermal environment of the air are the same, uniform within that system. So what makes Solari's concept really interesting, I think, and unique is the fact that it is but the fact that it's being built on a slope, say a 30-degree slope, and it's 100 to maybe 300 feet long, you get a distinct temperature gradient. A typical winter scenario might be freezing temperatures down here at the 10 o'clock until 10 o'clock in the morning is outside the greenhouse, and as that air comes in the greenhouse, it becomes heated, and as the parcel of air becomes lighter, it rises, the density changes, it becomes gains more energy, becomes warmer, 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 and quite hot. And you can control how hot or how large that temperature gradient is by how much fluid, in this case air, you let through the system. Now, corresponding to that temperature gradient, are really distinct agricultural microclimates. So a typical winter cropping schedule might be, say, January, February, in the lower parts of the greenhouse, the colder part of the greenhouse, bok choy and cabbage and snow peas and Brussels sprouts, all of your cold weather crops. And as you approach the top of the greenhouse, corn, beans, squash, eggplant, tomatoes, maize, the full spectrum of summer crops. So the implication is that not only are you using 1/30 the water within the system, and you are extending the greenhouse to a full 12 months growing season, but you're also increasing the potential for different varieties, a really diverse vegetable diet. Another, I think, important point to be made is that the greenhouse also can provide meaningful employment for individuals, actually your residents that are living here, that are interested in growing their own food and even serving food. Also, individual residents might choose to have their own private plot, their own private little garden where they grow their own foodstuffs. Also, this greenhouse is going to produce way more produce than could be consumed by 5,000, 7,000 people. More like enough vegetable produce for 30 or even 40,000 people. If that's the case, then that really gives us another outside economy where we could be shipping produce picked fresh right off the vine daily to the larger metropolitan areas within the area. My name is Roger Tomalty. Along with my wife Mary, we have been actually working on the project from the very beginning. The project, Arscosanti, has been the lifelong work of architect Paolo Soleri.